What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Another show at Get a Load of This Trucking Podcast. As always, I am your host, Cameron Pechia, owner of Valley Trucking Insurance. That's who drives this podcast. With me today, I've got special co-host, Mr. Thomas Comstock. He's one of the agents that works for me and deals with trucking and transportation insurance. Thomas, what's happening?
Oh, same shit, different day, buddy.
Always, man. Well, welcome. Weather's turning. All of a sudden, there's going to be snow on the ground soon.
Oh, don't say that, man.
I know.
Don't say that, man.
At least it's pretty when it first starts to fall, but man, after a month, I'm ready for it to be gone.
I know. I question it. It's like, man, I need to move somewhere warm, but then I go somewhere warm and it's always humid when it's not in the Pacific Northwest. So then I die and I'm like sweat. I get off the airplane. I'm like, I can't handle it anymore.
I'll never move back down south again. That was way too humid for me.
It's pretty good down here in the Tri-Cities, man. We get up over 100 degrees, you know, in the summertime. It's usually sunny from April through October, sometimes into November. And
I've got
they call it a banana belt down here, so that you know you don't really get bad winters in this section. No. Unfortunately, my driving just doesn't stick to this area.
Yeah, and if I want to go golf or something in the wintertime, a lot of times I gotta go down there. But I got clients and stuff, and actually, for those that don't know who's popping in, I've got an awesome guest with us today. I'm excited to get him in here. He's a truck company owner that I've known and I work with now. Justin Robbins. Justin, how you doing, man? Introduce yourself. Let the folks know what trucking company you started and why you got into it and a little bit about yourself.
My name is Justin Robbins. Started my company, Peaks Logistics LLC. Just kind of decided to go on my own. When I first got my CDL, my plan was I moved furniture for 10 years and climbed the ladder. Became head crew leader at 2 or 3 different companies and was, where do I go from here? CDL was the clear answer, and I talked to the drivers that drove around the nation and it's like, okay, that'll probably be my end game. Planned on owning my own truck and going over the road. And then I had my first kid, got my CDL and said, what am I doing moving furniture? I'm done with this. Went off and started doing port containers. And first year doing that, man, I made $96,000. And that was the first year I've ever made good money.
And you went to college for that and stuff, right?
Yeah. Okay.
No, I'm joking. I mean, for the folks that don't know, I mean, there's a reason people get into trucking and there's a reason this industry is amazing. And I think like that right there, man, it's like, man, I see these people doing it. I'm hauling furniture and busting my back. And I seen you guys hauling furniture. That shit looks terrible. And it's like, this dude's driving the truck. I need to do what this dude does, And
exactly.
Now got your CDL. How was the process to get the CDL? For us, we're usually talking to established folks, and we haven't put or shed a ton of light on the process to get the CDL, start your own company. I'd love to explore a little bit of that and how you kind of figured it out. Some folks think they need to pay for help or get mentorship or have companies pay for their CDL. Then you end up working for them, or some go on their own. Let's chat about that, bud. What led you the route you went? Let's talk about some of that.
So during the time that I moved furniture, I explored many routes. Obviously, the first route is just ponying up the monies. Before I got my CDL back in the day, you used to just ride around the block with your company and they would tell them that you got enough hours and get the CDL so you could start driving for them. But then they started the requirement that you had to go and get the schooling and whatnot. And so I started exploring my options. First option, hey, pony up $6,000. But someone like me, I was making $27,000 a year. That was like a far distance dream. And, I met my wife, and we were both making about the $26,000 mark a year. And I started exploring a program called Workforce Investment Act. And then I looked into that a little bit. I looked into SWIFT, which we all know how they do.
I never see bad news about SWIFT ever, man.
Never. Always hear great
Don't
things.
get me
by all
wrong.
employees.
I'm a people person. When I'm out on the road, I'll talk to people, and I've met some really good Swift drivers.
Oh yeah.
But unfortunately, I've met far more bad drivers. And they're
Swift's a good organization. They got it figured out, and they move weight. I mean, their tonnage and the loads and like what they contribute to moving America around. I mean, it's phenomenal. So I never, I don't ever dog on them. It's just funny because you see the memes and you see the different things pop up and the acronyms that people have assigned to Swift, which we won't go into. But anyway, moving past Swift.
So I actually got turned down by Swift because, as I was telling you before I came on the podcast, I come from a pretty rough background, man. I had a rough childhood. And I got in some trouble in my teens and my early 20s. And basically, to be quite honest, I got in trouble for selling marijuana before it was legal in the state. So I got in trouble for it. Had I waited 10 years, I'd have been an entrepreneur.
You wouldn't be trucking anymore. You'd be a millionaire.
I would still call him an entrepreneur. I mean, it's just not, legit.
He was an entrepreneur. That's what let him into it.
But when that happened, it put down. Oh yeah. So when that happened, it put a huge weight on my shoulders. I had to, get past the fines, and that had to get far enough in my past where they seen, okay, he's past that lifestyle. And when Swift seen it, because I'm a high school dropout, don't have my GED, and I could have went back and got it, but everybody told me you can't succeed without that. And I'm a hard-headed type of guy. If someone tells me I can't, I'm going to find a way to do it.
Yeah,
and I seen that path when I started moving furniture, that if I got my CDL, it's so in demand that it was my way. I was like, if I get my CDL, nobody can tell me nothing. I'll always have a job. It's in such high demand. And once Swift turned me down, I was like, man, am I going to be able to do this? Is my record ever going to get far enough behind for me? And as the years went by, scraped, paid everything off, and I noticed the WIA, the Workforce Investment Act program through WorkSource, which is an unemployment low-income program.
Yep.
And I went into there and I applied for it. And this was in Kitsap County at the time. And they said, well, we'll pay this percentage of, and it can be anything. They'll, welding. It's a certain percentage of schooling that they'll pay. And
I'm guessing trade schooling is what the
exactly.
Is, right? Yeah.
You got to be applying for a position that's in higher demand than the one you're currently in. Yep. Or you have to have been on unemployment at some time within the last 2 years. And in the moving business, no matter how high you are on that list in the wintertime, you're collecting at least a week or two of unemployment because it slows down so much.
Okay.
And at the time, Kitsap County's population only accounted for about, I think it was $2,200 of the $6,000 I needed for truck driving school. So I was like, well, I ain't got the $4,000, I'm barely scraping by paying my bills. So kept going. Then eventually me and my wife were able to buy our first house out in Lake Bay, Washington. And it's literally just across the border from Kitsap County into Pierce County. My wife's like, you should go check out Pierce County's WIA program to see what they paid. So I did. Come to find out, because there's so much more population there, they ended up paying for all of my CDL school. So as soon as they said that you qualify for that, I was running. Found a great school down in the Port of Tacoma area, and went to that school, got my CDL, and I remember walking in, and Dave was the guy's name that owns it. God, I need to remember the name of the school. Now I'm on the podcast. I'm going to brain fart it.
It's all good.
But the first thing he said when he looked at my record was, I can get your CDL, but I don't think you're going to get a job. I said, don't worry about that. I already got a job waiting. I'm a mover, man. They'll hire anybody. And so got my CDL through them. And like I said, the first month and a half of having it, I was like, why am I moving furniture still? And my buddy I met in CDL school had gotten a job for an outfit doing port containers. And it's like, hey, man, the money's this good over here. And I went over and did that. And from there, man, it's just been feet on the ground running.
Dude,
and
that is And I knew I was excited to get you on this podcast, but now this is awesome because I think that this story can resonate with a lot, I think, and I hope, I know that this can be an inspiration to a lot of folks that think, hey, you know, maybe I made some bad choices, or like the thing that like, hey, I didn't graduate or I don't have a GED. That's a real thing. That's like a real weight that people think like, oh, I can't do it now because society had placed this so much emphasis on if you don't have this, I can't be successful. Right. And unfortunately, people get in that mindset of like staying down and not thinking that their self-worth is enough to get them there. But I hope, and with the resources and the technology and libraries and books and like YouTube and the amount of stuff that's out there, anybody can do anything. I mean, there's some things they can't do, but like, I mean, you can learn a craft and spend a lot of time perfecting it and get a job or start your own business or find an investor to start a business with. I mean, whatever, man, that gets me pumped up, man. Fucking badass, Justin. That's awesome.
So, and you're right, man. And I can't tell you because I don't got the numbers in front of me, but you look at how many of our youth, you know, they get into that state of mind and they commit suicide because they think, hey, you know, I'm not doing good in school. College is the only way. And we got this mentality of, hey, you need to, school is the way to go. It's the only way to go. And I remember back in the day, if you got in trouble, you went to the military. Yeah. I tried going to the military when I was at my lowest, like, hey, I want to turn my shit around. And even they said, we can't do nothing for you, man. We could waive your if you have your GED, we could give you a waiver for that, or we can give you a waiver for your criminal record. We can't waive both. And I was like, man, back in the day, if people were in this position, they were forced to go into the military.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and Thomas was in the branch of the military, and I always thank Thomas for doing that.
Thank you for your service.
Yeah, man.
You're welcome. And it's a funny thing, though, like definitely, you know, being raised in my generation, I'm 38 years old. So my parents are all the college. You got to go to college. You got to go to college. You got to go to college. You know, there's no other option. And I didn't want to do that. I'm hard-headed, too, so I wanted to figure out my own way. So Lord knows I fucked that up. So I had to go into the military. And then I got out of that, and I couldn't get hired because I was overqualified for other jobs that my skills for air traffic weren't transferable, really. So then I had to go back to school, and then I graduate, and then I'm thinking, well, why the hell did I do this? I don't have anything that really benefits me from having that piece of paper. Sure, I maybe can talk better, but I had those skills already. You know, it would have been developed through a professional course of any OJT I would have taken. And I could have been more successful earlier on had I just, you know, put my head down and done it. So like people like you, Justin, who have that like gumption to really just go out there and like get it done, man, it's fucking awesome. Like, I hope more people can like really, like Cameron said, fucking be inspired by this and get going on their own dreams. Like, that's awesome.
Well, I mean, hey, first year out, I mean, and Justin had mentioned this, like, man, straight rags to riches, like in the truest sense, in the truest like form of like, man, I went from $26,000 a year. And that's like, I grew up, you know, single wide trailer. I grew up with a single mom with like multiple, like, I know what that life is like. And then boom, you go to trucking, you get your CDL, you persevere through all those different things. You're resourceful. That's the thing I heard there is like, man, how resourceful can I be with what's available to me? And you found a way. And then you made $96K the first year. Bro.
Yeah, I went out. First thing I did was bought a brand new Ram diesel truck and travel trailer.
Oh, yeah, you did. Sir.
That shit was gone within the first year and a half of owning it until I realized this ain't the way.
Now you gotta go. Now you gotta be smart. But you just get back on the road. You just go run a couple more routes, man. I'll make some more money.
Exactly.
It's all over the place. What comes and goes.
When I was doing the port containers, it was good money. And unfortunately, and that's where I met Derek, the guy I was telling you that referred me to you for the insurance. And I got to give a big shout out to Derek because he's the one that really helped me get forward with buying my own truck and starting my company because he had already done it. And so he knew all the ins and outs. He held my hand through the whole process. I was lucky enough to have him. When that company, that port container company, they had a couple drivers that got in some accidents and their score was so low, he decided to shut his doors. He ended up opening them a couple months later. But when that happened, I went and I got a job at Food Services of America. It was a union job. And I'd never worked in the union before. Ended up being a beautiful thing. If anybody ever gets a chance as a driver to work for the union, I can't say nothing bad about it. Their medical's almost second to none. You know, when you build a pension, you know, you can't go wrong with that. And a lot of the people on this side of the mountains, the pay's all right. But on that side of the mountains, pay's insane.
And for the listeners across the country, it's like you got the I-5 corridor. They pretty much control the boats, and there's all the money. And then you got the rest of us that like just farm
and that's
like live in the farmland and like do all, you know, the hard work, right?
That's the truth. Yeah. That's the truth.
Yeah.
Right?
So
for those FSA, I was delivering food. I was driving 10% of the time and doing hard labor 90%. So it was more unloading food cases to restaurants, prisons, retirement homes, bars, you name it. Food Services of America was a great company from the owner down to the lowest employee. Great company. The U.S. Foods bought us out, and they bought us because we were running circles around them. And I can't say the same for U.S. Foods.
Well, here you are, man. It motivated you. Now let's, real quick, and it's funny because a lot of the guests that we get on are either some are truck drivers, some are retired truck drivers now turned entrepreneur and come up with a solution to help the trucking industry, or some have never actually been in a truck, but we always ask, it's like, you know, what's your CB handle? And then obviously you drive a truck, so I know you got one. You know, what's your CB handle on the road?
Actually, I don't have a CB. I have no need for one.
Okay, you're gonna have to get one then at some point, man. What's a nickname that you've been told then growing up? Like, what was the one that stuck with you?
If I was gonna have a CB handle, it'd probably be Big J Rob.
There we go.
My first initial. That's always the nickname if I'm doing my little, you know, online sites and stuff like that. But it's just because I got that hefty trucker gut, so I'm big, and then, you know, J-Rob for Justin Robbins.
All right, let's go.
But I don't plan on ever owning the CB, man, with today's technology. I mean,
come on, man. We got to go back, bring it back. What do you listen to when you're on the road? What kind of music?
When I'm on, to be honest with you, man, I'm either on the phone with the fellow truck driver, or I'm dead silent.
Which is basically like a CB, though. You know that, right?
Exactly. That's why I don't need a CB.
I know. So you get in the mountains and you don't got service, you know.
Well, Pandora. I mean, Pandora has all the off-air stations.
All the podcasts you want to listen to.
Exactly. Well, now that I actually plan on listening to a bunch of your guys' podcasts, Books on Tape. That's a good thing. I was going to mention that for all these drivers that get sleepy when they're out there. And even, I know this is going to sound stupid, but Netflix. My buddy turned me on to that when we were doing port containers because I had a problem. We called it the Twilight Zone from about milepost 46 down to Vancouver, where there isn't a lot of towns. I was like, man, we were starting at midnight, 1 o'clock. I always get sleepy. He goes, man, well, turn on Netflix. I go, yeah, that's what I'm going to do to be a safer driver is I'm going to watch movies. He goes, no, man, that's not what I'm saying. He goes, turn it on. You get into a series at home or something. You get to know the characters, and it's just like a book on tape, you know. You put your phone off to the side, and you just listen to it. And as you drive, it's just the same as listening to a book on tape.
Yep.
And it actually helped me. You know, I remember the show was Californication, just something I could find that had a lot of seasons. And I would just listen to it while my, phone was sitting over there on the side, and it helped me stay awake.
Nice.
I would recommend rewatching the show though, because there's lots of visual stuff in that one that's a lot of fun too.
Oh, trust me, I got plenty of watching of that. I know.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, I'm in the mood to buy a Porsche.
I don't know why. It just happens.
Hey, and guess what? You can. In this business, like if that's what you chose, man. How'd you come up on a truck? Let's go through that process, because I think that's a barrier. That's a big barrier for a lot, right? And I think if it's not well thought out, you end up in a market like a lot of folks from what I see or have been seeing, they're coming in the market in the last year or two because of COVID. And also in the spot markets, like, people are making a lot of money. They're balling out off the spot market, but they're not building relationships for lanes and people that they can work and solidly have a connection with. So now they're starting to feel the crunch. The spot market slips. They start not getting paid. All of a sudden, I'm seeing loads move for $1 a mile, or at least DAT saying, hey, some loads are moving for $1 a mile.
No, hey, that's the truth.
It is the truth. So, and they can't make those notes. You can't even afford gas at that, right? How are you going to pay the truck bill? How are you going to pay the insurance? How are you going to pay that? How are you going to pay for the home that you just bought and like provide that lifestyle that you're trying, if they didn't plan accordingly, and if they didn't save, and if they didn't like properly set aside money for maintenance and repairs and like the tire, like everything that goes into it, there's a lot to learn there. So I'm really curious about that for you, man.
So for me, another shout out to Derek. He's the one that I bought his truck.
Shout him out in his company too, because Derek's the one who connected us anyway.
Yeah, even though he said his name's Trevor when I come on here, not to be.
All right, we'll leave it anonymous. All right,
he's Trevor. A pretty private guy. I'm lucky that I'm even able to say Derek. But
there's a lot of Dereks. We don't know.
He likes to stay low key.
Yeah.
He good dude, man. Biggest heart from probably anybody I know. But he's seen the struggles that he went through when he came out of the port business and started becoming an owner-operator, and almost put him out of business with getting a bad truck. And so when I started talking to him, he's like, look, I got this truck. I could sell you. I'll give you a good deal on it. So you could, it's a worker. It's 2003 Kenworth T600 it was. It had that Cat C15 6MZ single turbo, which is just, a family heirloom engine. And he's like, I'll give you a cheap price on this. He had a flatbed trailer, an extra one of those, because he had two. He sold me that for cheap, and that honestly, I probably would have maybe been out of business the first 6 months of doing this had I went out and tried buying new equipment and put myself in these, like you said, big, hefty payments. But I was able to get that and do some flatbedding, and I just used the Truck Stop, which is now, the Truck Stop app. You pay $160 a month or $150, and it'll show you all the average days to pay and brokers experience. So if they, they're bad at paying people, they'll give them a low grade. And I just started going on there and bidding my work. And I think my first month of running, I made like 20 grand.
Nice.
And my monthly.
And I think that, for folks that are listening, maybe they're company drivers still, or, whatever. Just because he made 20 grand doesn't mean he made 20 grand, right?
No.
When you get 20 grand, like, okay, let's break that 20 grand down to what that means. And you don't have to go like exact numbers, but you can give an idea of like, hey, I set this aside. I know this is coming. I know that I got to do this. I'm going to plan for that. What do you do?
So I took enough out. So when I started my business, the first thing I'm going to tell any company driver that's thinking about going owner operator, it takes about $100,000 to $150,000 to start. And what I mean by that, you don't need it cold hard cash, but you need some sort of avenue to that money, like a second loan on your house, or if you do have the cash, because when you first start off, getting all your licenses, getting your insurance, buying your equipment, and then you're going to want. What I did is I took about $99,000 loan out on my house. Bought the equipment from Derek, paid for all of my straps and all that equipment, paid for my Bach 3 and all the stuff that I needed to get started. And then I made sure I had enough left in my nest egg in case I wasn't out there making enough money. I had money to, do repairs and whatnot. And with that $20,000, I was paying, because the lanes over here, like you said, on I-5, if you're over there, it's easy to grab something from Seattle to Tacoma that pays $600 to $750 and keep doing stuff like that. Stick around. Over here on the east side, though, not a lot of loads coming out of here.
It's a little tougher. You got to hit the egg, or you got to hit to Idaho. End up with Boise a lot. Trips that are back and forth from the middle of the state, or you're going all the way south. Like
Idaho's a dead zone too.
Yep.
I found that. I'd say probably 75% of the time I was driving back empty from Idaho because there just weren't any loads.
Yeah.
Montana's a dead zone coming out of there. Everything going into there pays really well. It's where, it counteracted
that. And I think that's something to bring up. I mean, people learn it, and you're going to learn it by default because you're going to be like, shit, I can't get nothing out. You have to almost factor that, like, okay, I'm going to get paid $6-7 a mile going in or whatever this looks like. But I either need to find a parlay route to go elsewhere, or I need to know that when I come back, it's an empty, or like whatever. Like you just need to map and plan that out. Folks don't kind of realize that, I don't think. So really you're not getting $7 on that trip per mile.
Exactly.
Right?
And a mistake a lot of drivers will make is they're like, well, I'm not going to drive empty. I'm not going to deadhead that many miles. I'm going to sit here until I find a load. Well, now you sat there 2-3 days until you found something that just pays for your fuel to get back, and you missed out on 3 days of revenue over in a hot zone. Yeah, to where I was finding it was easier for me to drive to Portland or something like that empty, and then just pick up another better paying load there. You make it up on the back end.
Okay. See, and I like that. That's forward thinking a little bit there, man. It really is. So, go ahead, Thomas.
Brought up his resourcefulness, man. He keeps talking about how he's been able to find ways through all of these obstacles that are coming up in front of him, from the funding through the programs, moving and taking a loan out on his house, finding a good deal on truck, planning ahead with the loan, having that nest egg, being willing to take a hit to go find something better. I mean, being able to be nimble like that is a wonderful trait. I see a lot of new business owners that I work with tend to be a little bit more headstrong, especially the older guys that have been in the industry for a long time. They're unwilling to kind of make those sacrifices to be able to, say, expand their radius, to find those loads. They're going to pay them more there and back rather than just sticking to their little area. So, I think it's really awesome that you're being able to find all of these solutions. And I hope that more people can follow suit and find the same solutions that you have, because the rates, like you said, Montana and Idaho, not helping people. And we all need stuff. They all need stuff. And it's weird that it just doesn't work from there. So, hopefully people can follow suit. That's awesome.
Oh, I think they will. I think I'd like to attribute a lot of that to, like, I got him this gangster price on insurance, so that like kept him afloat for a little bit.
That's no joke. And the one guy I referred to you, I met him. I actually sold my flatbed. So what I'm currently doing right now, one thing I'd always tell drivers: adapt to your location. Find out what product is moving from where you're at and what you're trying to do. I'm not going to be going cross country. I'm sticking Oregon, Idaho, Washington, because I have a 10-year-old daughter and a 5-year-old daughter, and I want to be there for their dance recitals and their school programs and that type of stuff. Now, I'll miss one here and there. I still sleep in my truck doing that, but I ain't gone for weeks at a time. I'm home most of the week. I'm home every weekend, so I don't work weekends.
And I think that's something to be highlighted, because a lot of folks get that mindset of, hey, if I'm a trucker, I'm gone. And there are folks that are, and there are lanes and jobs and things that you're going to do where, you're gone 3-4 weeks, maybe come back a week, then you're gone again. But if you're in control of your own destiny here, you got your own truck, you got the right connections, you're doing the right thing, you're now kind of dictating and setting that schedule. I mean, that's awesome. I love that. And I've got 2 girls, as I mentioned on this show before, 10 and 7. And I coach the 7-year-old soccer and like all, you know what I mean? So I try to be there the same. And fortunately, I'm in a position that allows me to do that with technology and stuff. I mean, it's great. So, that's awesome. What was one of the biggest, let's say, mistakes or failures that you experienced or went through early on that had someone told you, or like, man, that was just something I didn't see coming, or what? Like, what was a big failure that you had?
As an owner operator?
Yep. Or even in the setup, at any point, kind of taking this journey to become the owner operator, there had to be some failure or setback somewhere, right?
No, to be honest with you, any sort of failure or setback I've had, it's just turned into motivation. I haven't really had no setbacks. I've been lucky. No joke. I've been lucky enough to where every move I've made has been forward. I just got that mindset to where I'm not going to be stagnant, and I refuse to take steps backwards. So I'll give a small example. I guess when I got bought out with FSA from US Foods, the pay was the same and it was just as good over there. And when COVID first hit, I went through the grinder. I was out there working when they had people sitting at home collecting unemployment and making more money than me on the unemployment than I was working. But I wanted my daughters to see, hey, you don't take the free handout. You go out there and work. And so I worked. And I worked through the whole pandemic. I was going to hospitals, retirement homes, prisons, when all this shit was just widespread and going crazy. And I'm gonna say it straight out. US Foods shit on me and the other guys out of our yard. because we were the FSA guys coming over, and we were in what I called purgatory, because we didn't move into the Fife branch, and they were waiting to settle us. And so we were getting all our stuff from Woodburn, and the Woodburn drivers down there and warehouse workers were upset because we made a lot more than them. So we would get bad loads and bad trailers, and then our actual loads were constantly changing on who we were delivering to. Fife slowly took our work, and eventually, for my daughter's and family's sake, I decided to move to Tri-Cities for medical reasons, and just the fact that the weather was better over here. Tried doing a transfer within the same union from Olympia to Yakima, and there was plenty of positions open, and they were all for it. And then when it actually came down to it, Woodburn dragged their feet and kind of blackballed me because they were mad. They didn't want drivers leaving their area, and they had a little bit of a vendetta against me. So they kind of dragged their feet on that. Well, eventually I moved on, got a job with Harbor Food Service, which was the old FSA. When the sale happened, they had to sell it to two different companies, so it wasn't a monopoly. And they had opened up over here, and so I got a job with them. And any driver out there looking to get in the union, Harbor Food Service is who I would recommend over U.S. Food. Cisco, never, ever worked for them. But went to work for them, and just couldn't keep up with that commute to do a night job. Wanted to, be able to help my wife with my daughter with her counseling sessions. And eventually I left that, and I was pretty much forced to go. But U.S. Foods hired me back, but in Tri-Cities. And that's what I think they wanted the whole time, because they were so in need of drivers down here. Well, I took that job and took a 33% pay cut across the board of what I was making on the other side of the mountains. My medical plan went from the A plan to the Z plan. And that's when I decided to go owner operator. That was probably if I was going to have a hurdle, I'd call that it. But I was like, F that, I'm not going to do with my experience what I do for that much less. I mean, that was less than I made when I first started this.
Yeah.
And so I talked to Derek, bought his truck and trailer. It's like, all right, I'm going to be my own boss now.
Yep. Well, and I love that mindset. And it is a mindset. It's all about mindset, right? And like obstacle is the way. Thomas knows. I mean, he's been around me a long time, and I kind of same deal. Like something comes up, I see it as a motivation and opportunity, and like it pushes me to get better, right? And I just kind of buckle down and grind a little bit more on that. So, man, that's awesome.
Failure is just a learning opportunity, right?
That's true.
Exactly. You fail
all it
forward. I think it's kind of the common phrase there. So
yeah.
And right now, like we were talking about the business and stuff. Whenever you start a company as an owner operator, like a single truck like mine, you're usually net red your first year or two. Mm-hmm. And I'm definitely net red right now. I mean, I've had money. I've been able to pay my mortgage and pay myself. But I mean, technically I gave myself a $76,000 loan or contribution. I think my tax lady said it's a owner contribution is the way she decided to have it worded. and
I think that's actually something to mention too. So you did get a tax expert, if you will, and set it up. How'd you set up your company? And like, were you told this? Did you research this? Because I think that's a big thing. Sole prop, LLC, incorporate, S corp, whatever. There's a bunch of options. Folks don't know, right? So what'd you do? And not that that's the gospel, but I'm curious about that.
Well, again, Derek held my hand on this one and let me know that, LLC is the way to go, because you don't want to tie anything personal within business. If you get in a wreck in your truck and you don't have enough to cover everything, you don't want them going after your house and your personal stuff. So LLC was what I got my company labeled under. At the end of the year, I actually have a meeting with my tax lady in October, and she's going to let me know, at the end of the year, what to kind of file tax-wise. Because from what I'm hearing, your first year or two, they might want you to file for your personal and your business tax-wise. They might file you as like a S corp or something like that. But for me, definitely LLC to keep things separated. You don't go mixing your biz. Don't go buy yourself a pair of shoes with your business card, because once you start mixing your personal with your business, the LLC is out the window.
Yep. I think that that's smart. And I think, and you can set up and structure as an LLC, and I know still get taxed as an S Corp, and all of that just depends on how you're taking money out of the business and like what that stuff is. So I recommend talk to a CPA, somebody that's versed. Specifically trucking would be great. That's only because they understand the flow of cash and how trucking works. But more important is like business, right? On how to get you more money back and how to, if you got stuff to write off, like you're self-employed, you can write off your health insurance and anything that surrounds the health insurance as long as you're buying. Like there's a bunch of things, but we'll go into that down the road. What has been, aside from the freedom, creating your own schedule, being there for your daughters, like what was one of the things when you became an owner op that was just like an aha moment for you? And like, I'm guessing you'll never go back, right? You're going to just keep.
Oh no. Yeah. I've always wanted to own my own truck, my own business. And I'll tell you the aha for me was, 3 months in, I've probably had 2.5 months worth of vacations already. 3 months in, I took a vacation that was 2 weeks long and rode my motorcycle with a buddy down the coast. And
awesome.
that was awesome. Made sure that we looked at some trucks and trailers along the way.
Yes, sir.
It's a business trip.
Yes, sir.
Exactly.
Always. Yes, sir. That's
but
cool,
the fact
man.
that I
So,
was
like,
actually in the market for a truck made it legit. So
Yeah, for sure.
and I think it's a lifestyle, right?
yep. It's definitely a lifestyle.
Yeah.
But the freedom to be able to take this week off to help the wife get the kids when school starts, or if there's a medical, just being able to, because when I was in the union, it was seniority. You had to get the okay or the permission, or you had so many personal holidays or so much sick leave. Now, you're your own boss. You need the time off. You look in the mirror and say, hey, can I get a,
Yeah.
can I get a day off?
Yeah. Who's been, aside from Derek, because obviously he's going to get royalties from this thing, it sounds like, but what's either been a resource, a product, a service, another professional that you've worked with that's like been a good resource for you, or somebody like, man, that's a valuable asset for a new business? Because I think that's it too. And what we kind of started this podcast for was like, hey, let's figure out a way to get back to the trucking community in any way we can. Like, and we're trying to feature, highlight, bring on guests or folks or services that are truly like helping the trucking community. So what's somebody or someone or some product or something that you think like, hey, if you're new, this is what you need to check out?
So I would say, as far as people, don't be shy. Don't sit in your truck when you get to a truck stop and just turn on your TV. Go out and talk to other drivers, man. I'm a people person. I'm going to talk. I'm going to ask, regardless of what their views are. If they're not my views, I'm going to still listen and pick things out of that conversation that I could use to help me. And talk to other drivers, man. Talk to them, even if you look stupid. You're not going to look as stupid as you do if you're wrecked on the side of the road for not knowing that stuff. So that's always helped a lot. But one thing I like to do is, once you get your MC number and your authority, you start getting emails and phone calls from all these companies saying, hey, you need to file this, this, and this. And so what I did is, Derek told me, hey, don't pay those guys. You could do this on yours. He's like, you can do this on your own. And it makes your head spin. And there's like the guy I referred you to that bought my flatbed. He's paying a lady to set all his stuff up. And we were talking about how there's an avenue for that. And there is, had I not known Derek, I would have happily paid whatever to get all this stuff lined up. Because most drivers, they just want to drive and worry about their loads. You know what I mean? They don't want to have to worry about all that other stuff. And there's plenty. If it helps you, I ain't going to say it's a waste of money. If it helps you keep moving forward. But for me, I just let them send me the alerts, and I would go back and double check to see if they were just trying to money gouge me and get me to be a customer, or if those things weren't properly filed. And I'll give you the latest instance was my I think it was my 2290. I got an alert saying, and I just registered this back in March. And they were saying, hey, you need to register again. Your DOT number ends with a 9, so September is your month. And I was like, I didn't think I had to register this for another 2 years. And come to find out, they were right. it was only good for March to September. Now, I didn't pay them the $200 to do it because you go online and do it for free. So,
and you and I guess just for layman's terms, just walk through that process. FMCSA, like you logged in, you did your MCS 150 form, updated it, or what'd you do?
Just a what was it called? Yeah, it was an update.
Okay.
It was a 2-year update. So now it'll be good for
the biannual.
Until 20. Yep. Yeah, the biannual.
Yep. Yeah. And then there's tools and you're right. We get access to that too. And it's something that we actually will try to help clients with if like when we're reviewing or looking at things or reviewing the out of service or looking at the FMCSA side of things, if we notice that, that's something that we'd bring up and say, hey, you need to go update this, and it's easy. Like, hey, you just basically update this form, you sign it, you basically fax it in or email it, or you can do it on your own portal, whatever. Like it's not hard to do, but a lot of folks, you're right, get inundated, forget about it. They don't have reminders or whatever, and they're just operating their business. And next thing you know, the negative on that is if you do let that stuff go and you don't do the biannuals and you don't do certain things, you can get popped for out of service, and there's fines that get associated with some of those things. So you'll get popped by DOT, and depending on what it is, like you can get fined for it. So
not
it's
not just that,
keep
but
on
once
top
you
of
do
that.
start getting popped, you're gonna not when you go to give your MC or DOT number to get a load, they're gonna go and look at your score and be like, oh well, we can't use you because your score is too low.
Yep.
So you'll close the door on loads.
Yeah.
You're already learning, man. That's something that I try to educate folks on is like, hey, the safety score, this FMCSA score, these out of service, all this stuff matters. You might think it's small. You might think it's little, or people start hiring drivers that don't care and they're not doing the pre-trip or they're not taking pride. It's like, dude, that will screw up your DOT. And you're right. These brokers and stuff look at that because you think of it from their terms. Hey, I've got this $200,000, value load, and here's the pay on it and stuff. Moving from here to here, I need it to get there. I've got 4 companies, and these 2 look good, but one of them has a little bit better out of service. Well, the chances are this company is going to get it there and more reliably get it there. So they're not going to use this company, or they won't. The other thing is they won't pay as well either. Like if you got bad numbers and stuff, they know you like we'll give it to you for this, and you're going to end up taking a cut rate on it too, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, there's a bunch of things that snowball out of that. It's crazy.
You just got to keep your stuff. Like I just keep a list of my stuff written down, what I got to, update, when I got to update it, and stay on top of it. If that's something that's a struggle, though, like I said, you can pay somebody. You can find a company to pay to do that. Real quick, though, on the tax part, Carrie Simmons, S&A Financials, out of Puyallup, Washington. If any truck driver out here in Washington's looking for a good tax company, they specialize owner-operator truck drivers and trucking companies.
That's
awesome. I think too, Justin, let's connect with Carrie, and I'd love to have her on and chat. I mean, because anything or any resources or education she gives, I think would be good, but I think it's good PR for her. I think she'll get
I don't think she needs the PR, to be honest. I'm still working on meeting her. I haven't met her myself yet.
You let me know.
She's super busy. I'm meeting her for my first time in October to go over strategy for taxes, but they've been great so far. She has multiple people that work in the office under her. They set up your QuickBooks through them that's attached to your account. So anytime I've had a problem with my QuickBooks, like, hey, it's showing I made 80,000 and I've only made 20. Why is it, they went in and fixed it for me. And they just been great through the whole process. As far as insurance goes, your program through Great West, man, that's been a lifesaver, because everything I was told is I was looking at paying $1,500 a month as a new owner operator through probably Progressive. And that program that Great West has, man, that's been a lifesaver.
I'm glad you ended up connecting with me. And we try to do more than just obviously provide like the insurance piece, but like guidance and all that kind of stuff. I know you and I chat.
Yep.
I try to chat with clients quite a bit. Same with Thomas. So I think that, I appreciate that shout out, man, for sure. Let's connect with the tax person though. I really do think that.
I'll try, man, but don't hold your fingers. Another thing is too, I use you got to have a drug program, as an owner operator, a third party New Era drug program. I think they're out of California. They're great. Make sure that you register with the clearinghouse separate as a driver and as an owner operator, and then do a query on yourself and register them. And once you're registered with them, put them on there as your third party consensuous for your drug tests and whatnot. But that's a big one too. That'll put you out of service.
Mm. Yep, and that's it's not new because it passed a while back, but it's something that the old timers or folks just overlook. The clearinghouse is a big deal. It's funny, I saw the stat. It's like, we're out or short 70, 80,000 drivers, yet clearinghouse put down and like sideline like 70,000 drivers from the drug violations and things that they're just not working to get back into the trucks and stuff. But that's a different topic I do want to dive into. And Justin had asked permission to kind of shed some light and talk about drug related things coming up, fentanyl and some of this kind of stuff, which I think is creeping over. Every avenue, every society, every layer of society, people are starting to get impacted. So Justin, you feel free to share what you wanted to talk about.
So I just wanted to share my friend's story. Good friend, brother of mine, Todd, and his wife Leah lost their daughter, Alyssa Renee Rith, on July 8th, 2021. And she was 20 years old, had her life ahead of her. Beautiful young lady, was getting ready to go to college. And she took one pill. It was a Xanax. That was a street Xanax that her friend had given her. She wasn't a drug addict. She's, just experimenting a little bit. And I don't know about you, but in my youth, I experimented. And that's just something you can't do nowadays because this fentanyl, it's bad, man. It's a pandemic and it's been ignored long enough, but this shit's getting pushed through China. First it was getting made in China, pushed into Mexico and coming up through Mexico. Now they got hit so hard, they're just pretty much creating the ingredients to make the fentanyl, then selling it to the drug cartels, and they're creating the fentanyl. And they're making this stuff to look like candy. They're targeting our youth on purpose. And making the synthetic pills, they're mixing it in heroin, cocaine, any way they can, hoping for our youth to overdose. And it's gotten out of hand. And I know a lot of us truck drivers, a lot of guys don't have the same type of trucking I do that keep them home a lot, but they're gone on the road a lot. And the one thing that we do this for, it's for our kids, it's for our family. And I urge drivers to talk to their kids, especially the teenage ones, even your younger ones, and just, make them aware of this fentanyl, research it, learn it, and teach them about it and the amount of overdoses that are out there. Of course, you always preach don't do drugs, but before it was just for the side effects of that drug. Now that it's getting mixed and laced with this, you can't afford to experiment. All it takes is one pill. And now these good friends of mine, I lost a brother when I was young, and I seen what my mom went through losing a kid, and that's every parent's worst nightmare. And so, I can only imagine what these two are going to have to go through for the rest of their lives, pretending that they're happy and enjoying life when deep down inside they're not.
Well, and like you said, she didn't experiment. You kind of shed a little light prior to, like, this was because she was taking a flight, right, or something where she
they were coming in on a flight, and she was going to be picking them up. And so this was earlier in the day.
Got it.
They had taken their connected flight, and still makes me tear up a little bit. When they touched down, instead of coming off to seeing their daughter picking them up, they came off to a million phone calls from family, friends, medical people saying that she had died.
Yeah, and it's scary. Thomas has kids, you have kids, I have kids, and that's like my biggest fear too. And you're right, like, kids are going to experiment. People are going to do things, they're going to do. Now it's like, man, the safe drug, your gateway drug, marijuana, right? Like, it's, well, at least you know what it is.
It's alcohol.
Alcohol, thank you.
Alcohol's a big one.
That's the gateway
a bad
drug.
Deal too, though. A lot of people die from alcohol, man.
Alcohol, for me, like I said, I told you I got in trouble for the marijuana, but for me, it's the true gateway drug. First thing I ever did was drink, and as a truck driver, if I have a stressful week and I come home, I can't go out to my garage and hit a joint. I would like to, because that joint, I'm going to get high. I'm not going to, have any sort of hangover. It's not going to affect me, but I'm not able to. So, I'm almost forced to drink or just suck it up. And, of course, I just suck it up because I refuse to drink.
Yeah.
Well, you got
and I
more
think
self-control than a lot of people. And honestly, though, that fentanyl stuff is like you said earlier, Cam, it's affecting a lot of people and getting into every facet of life. My brother has been going through problems with oxys and fentanyl use for years now, and he's currently in rehab again and trying to find his way out. And it's watching my parents go through that conversation of what he's been doing, how he's been using, why his intentions to use it were, and how that spiral can get for, he's a user. He wasn't just experimenting. So very different story. But, watching them just break down over just the thought of losing, I can't even imagine, what your friends felt, your brother felt, or what we would feel with our kids going through that stuff. So I think that awareness is definitely something that we need to push amongst all the youth.
I agree.
Just terrible what's going on.
I think the awareness. We just watched some is a series like docu-series, but there's actors and stuff. Was like Dope Sick. I don't know if anyone's seen that. It goes through the opioid. So check that out. Dope Sick. It was a good one. It goes through the opioid crisis but it was like thought out though, man. It's crazy because like they targeted the areas that had minors and like high levels of like for prone on injuries and things like that they need pain management. They need all this kind of stuff. That's not a good way to do it, but at least it's not a street drug with the opportunity to get fentanyl, and there's too many stories. I just heard one. It was a young 30-year-old professional on a conference, wife, kid, wife's pregnant, out one night, goes out. They decide to experiment. I think it was probably cocaine or something. I don't know exactly, but I think that's what it was laced with fentanyl. That dude never answered the door again in his hotel. They came in, they busted in after 2 days. He's on the floor, one time. And he's innocent. Like obviously he went out, he was having a good time and did the stuff, but he didn't do that thinking like, here's the repercussions or the consequence or the possible consequence. Like, I'm not going to go home and see my family because of one night, Yeah. Well, I agree, man. It
only takes that fentanyl, man. They created it to be like a super painkiller for someone that comes in with gunshot wounds or in a car accident, like a morphine. And now it's being mass produced and shoved into everything. And it only takes a little bit. It only takes a little bit, man.
It's scary. Yeah. No, and I'm glad you brought that up because it's I think it's something that needs to be raised. Awareness needs to be raised around that, and our youth need to be educated. And the more education, the better. My mom was that way. She talked to me about, hey, you're going to do stuff or you're going to do this. I know you're going to go out and party. Call me. Don't ever drive. Don't ever get in the car with I don't care where it's at, what time, I don't care. Just call me. And I don't know if I ever actually executed the phone call, but I knew okay, I have this in my pocket because she talked to me. It wasn't like don't drink and blacklisted and made me want to go do it, but it was talked about, right? So
yeah, I have the other thing too. I was going to say with this stuff, and it's not just being taken. Be careful. I was reading about a guy that picked up a dollar bill and they had put fentanyl on that dollar bill, and he from picking that up, he ended up ingesting it and got sick. Didn't kill him, but I mean, they're out there putting this shit on money, just leaving it on the ground for people because they know somebody's going to pick up that dollar.
That's strange.
Crazy. That's wild, man.
Yeah.
Man, thank you so much for hopping in. Man, there's so much value that you brought, and no doubt, I mean, this has to help some people. So I'm hoping that everyone will share this episode, share it with folks that are thinking about getting into trucking or employees that want to go out and, start their own thing and stuff like that, man. I think there's a lot of good information packed into this episode, Justin, and I appreciate you taking the time to join us today, man.
Yeah, of course, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, it's been a wonderful conversation.
What's on your horizon? Are you going to just kind of stay owner op? Do you plan on scaling at any point, or what do you think?
I'm staying owner op one truck, man. I don't want to deal with the headache of finding loads for these guys. These guys waking up not feeling like working that day, not being a good driver, wrecking my shit. But I actually, for my zone over here, I found a gig where I'm going to be doing power only, pulling their reefer trailers for Cool Mountain Transport, and that's what I'm going to focus on doing now for the next couple months to see how that goes. I talked for people out there looking for a company that just own a truck and they're looking to power only. Fairchild's not a bad gig either. I didn't go with it just because I didn't want to give up my authority. I already had my authority. But if you're starting out, you don't mind running under someone's authority, using their insurance. Fairchild has a program to where if you're dedicated out of Grandview, Washington, doing their Walmart loads, you get free fuel. You go every time you go to that location in Grandview, your fuel's free. Now for me, I'm not stupid. So when they said that as a big perk, and they thought that was going to be, you just reel me in. I was like, well, that's a business expense. That's a tax deduction. So I don't care about your free fuel. You're saving
they just get all the deductions for you.
Yeah, I'm going to give the IRS more money instead of the fuel company. That's what that tells me.
That's right. But there's options. There's
a lot of options.
Research, do your own thing, but be smart about it, man. Hell yeah, dude. I appreciate your time. I think that's awesome. So if anyone wants to reach out or has questions, like, are you on LinkedIn or Facebook or anything like anyone?
I'm on Facebook. Okay. It's a pretty, I keep it private because you never know who's out there.
And I'll tell you what, if anyone wants to connect with him, just holler at me and I'll make a connection if you're legit. So if you're not watching Jeffrey Dahmer episodes and stuff and just sitting there and talk to Justin or something like that. So you'll be all right. Okay.
Another thing I wanted to say to drivers, open up as many avenues as you can. Get your TWIC card. Get your TWIC card in case you want to go do port work. You find a company that has port work. Or because there's a lot of loads that I found on the load boards that you needed to have your TWIC card. And I had mine, had let it, from doing the port containers, let it expire because I was like, I'm not going to need this anymore working for the union. And I just recently got it back because I seen that there were loads coming out of the port areas, Vancouver, Portland, Tacoma, Seattle, for the Northwest area. Open up as many avenues and keep your mind open. Don't be too good for anything.
I like it. I think that's good advice.
I like that. I liked it a lot.
Cool. Thank you, Thomas. Justin. Thank you very, very much.
It was nice meeting you, Thomas.
Man,
you great. Too, Justin.
So, podcast will be released. It'll be on Spotify, YouTube, all the different platforms. You can follow Get a Load of This on LinkedIn. We got a Facebook group, too, where we try to put people together in different trucking and platforms and stuff. So the Facebook group's there. And yeah, man, thank you. I appreciate it. Have a good one, y'all.
You too.